As you grow older, you start to wonder what kind of diseases should you be guarding yourself from, so you can make the right decision with your diet. The reality is that the only way to predict what will happen in the future is to generally look at what's happened in the past to your family. Quite simply, you need to look at your family's medical history, and if you have a history of prostate cancer, then you should guard against that. But if you have a history of stroke, then you should guard against that. Essentially, what you need to do is to ensure you are following the Mediterranean diet as the base diet, and then make small adjustments to the diet based on your family's medical history. The Mediterranean diet has been proven time and time again to be the best base diet for you to build a healthy life from. Understand the basic principle of this is that healthy food allows your body to be healthy. Not only that, but healthy food is expected to help with many other conditions. You don't really need to be finding a diet for every specific disease prevention. So for those of you who are not intimately familiar with the Mediterranean diet, don't worry, I have created a handy checklist for you. On this checklist are a list of foods that you should add to your diet and a list of foods that you should look at removing from your diet. Before I go through the list, it's really important that you understand there's not one magical food that will change your chances of developing cardiovascular disease, diabetes, or cancer. The more research that is performed on these topics indicates that it is the overall dietary pattern that is most essential. It's not just about what you take out of your diet, it's also what you add into your diet. So don't think that you can maintain your normal diet but just remove these bad things. This won't have the effect that you desire. You need to have a complete overhaul of your diet so that it follows the Mediterranean diet, and then ensure that within your diet you pay specific attention to the foods on this checklist. So let's go through this checklist briefly, and as I go through, make sure you note down the foods to add. Let's look at the foods to add. 4 tablespoons of olive oil. You should be consuming about 4 tablespoons of olive oil per day. In a recent study, it showed that the people who had this measure of olive oil in their diet decreased their risk of cardiovascular disease. 400 grams of vegetables. You should be consuming about 400 grams of vegetables on a daily basis. And of that 400 grams, more than 200 grams should be raw and cooked vegetables. 3 fruits. You should be consuming approximately 3 fruits per day. 450 grams of legumes, you should be consuming about 450 grams of legumes per week. 350 grams of fish, so you should be consuming about 350 grams of fish per week. White meat, when you have a menu choice, it is recommended that you choose white meat over red meat. And in moderation, 1 glass of wine. So 1 glass of wine occasionally is meant to be good for you. Tomato-based sauces. When looking at a sauce choice, you should be choosing tomato-based sauces, and you can look at adding herbs, spices, and garlic. Looking at these things to add to your diet, it actually looks quite simple to do. Remember though, it's not just one of these foods that have a positive effect. It's a combination of all of these foods while adhering to something very similar or to the Mediterranean diet. I think you'll agree that a lot of these food recommendations just come down to the choices that you make. You need to make sure you are making choices that are good for you and on the recommended list.